In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I painted this skateboard. So starting off, I used my iPad just to lay out your design. And once that was done, I ended up printing it out on my family printer at home, and then I just traced it onto the skateboard. This is actually my third skateboard that I've painted. I've done one every summer so far. So 2 summers ago, I did a Chinese dragon with a warrior standing on a mountain. Looking back to that one, it's really bad, and so I like going back to see like, hey, you know, my skill has improved. And then my most recent one last summer was the octopus holding a skull. I really liked that one. It was like an underwater scene. Pretty cool. I liked that one. That was my favorite. And for this summer, I did a man eating a brain at a dinner table. It just kind of came to me in the shower. I really don't know how these ideas come in my head, but I'm alone normally when they happen, and then I just pop in my head. So that's what I went with. Looking back, I do wish I went with a little bit different of a concept. I wish I had altered the idea a little bit, but I'll get into that later. So as you're seeing here, I ended up buying a skateboard. I bought this skateboard for really cheap at Savers. It was around $6, I believe. So really cheap, and it was very old too. But all I needed was the skateboard deck. So I threw out the wheels and the trucks, and then I sanded down the entire skateboard, and then I primed it. I used some primer that I had left over around, and then I used the charcoal method, like I had mentioned, to trace the sketch onto the skateboard. Charcoal method is basically where you have this piece of paper or whatever your sketch is, and then you just put a bunch of charcoal on the back of the paper, put the paper down, you tape it down, and then you just trace with like pretty firm over the lines that you want put down, and that transfers the charcoal from the back of the page to whatever you want to transfer onto. And that's the sketch on the skateboard. Now, it didn't really work out the background didn't really work out the way I wanted it to, but everything else went fairly to plan. But like I mentioned, I wish I did change the idea a little bit. I liked the brain idea and the blood on the plate, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then I kind of moved it into a pirate theme, and I don't think I liked that direction. Like, it was too much of a theme and a story inside the painting, and I just wanted it to be, which is fine, it's a story or a theme, but I just wanted it to be a cool looking skateboard, which I think I achieved that. I think it's still cool looking, but it's not really executed as well as I wanted it to be. I think one struggle I really had was working with the acrylic paints. So I had taken an oil painting class, which I have another video up actually, about my oil painting class and the oil paints that I used inside class and stuff like that, and a bunch of the different paintings that I painted, which I think made me better at acrylic paints, but I still really don't like them. I used oil paints, and oil paints are so much easier to use. I just found that they blended easier. They were very opaque in some areas when I wanted them to be opaque, and when they weren't, they were easily layerable, and they were just great to use. The only problem was when you use oil paints, it's really hard to use oil paints on like a skateboard or like something that's not a canvas, and you can't really use it without like proper protection. Like when you're using mineral spirits and like oil-based paints, it's really messy to clean up, and it's just a gross process to use oil paints. So I obviously went with acrylic paints. Something that I did go towards or lean towards is Posca pens and colored pencils. It's a weird one. I've never used them together, but I found that when I layered Posca pens down on the skateboard and then colored pencils on top, I used them mostly for shading and to add like value to the Posca pens. It made it look pretty cool. I liked the way that looked on the skateboard. So instead of using acrylic paints, I mostly went to Posca pens. And that was a lot more fun of a process to paint. And I also found that it was a lot quicker too. The Posca pens laid down really quick, and then the colored pencils, I mean, I've used colored pencils for a while now, and they were easily layerable and blendable, and it just felt like I was drawing on paper on top of the Posca pens, and it wasn't really that bad. The only problem I had was when there was texture on the skateboard, it made the colored pencils look a little off and weird, which made it look a little rough, but that wasn't too concerning, and I liked the way it looked, so I kept going with it. For the bird, though, I did do acrylic paints, and I just had to do multiple layers. I also think I'm using pretty cheap acrylic paints, so it's definitely not the best acrylic paints to use on such an opaque surface, or looking for an opaque surface, I mean. I think the bird and the brain were my 2 favorite parts. I wanted the cat to be sipping the beer, which kind of came out okay, but I think the contrast between the cat and the black background is there's too much contrast there. It kind of takes your eye away from the rest of the image, which I quite enjoy. But I think the end result came out okay. I do just wish that I went with a different idea, or maybe a little bit different one. Another idea I was thinking about doing on a skateboard, which I might do in the future, it's a robot holding like a human eye or like an eyeball or something, or like a mouth. I mean, I've talked about this in past videos, but I love technology, and doing projects about technology or paintings and sculptures, any type of art about technology and robots. I just find it super fascinating and interesting to dissect our future, or possible future of humans. But for this one, I found that I was moving towards more of a theme. But for some of my recent paintings, I found that I draw more to storytelling and illustration kind of themes. Another struggle I had on this board is that the side where the grip tape was that I peeled off was really sticky. So I didn't record it, but I had to peel off all that stickiness with a chisel and just like scrape it all off. And then I did a lot of sanding on top of that to get it a nice, crisp, smooth, blue-sided board. So on the other side, there's no grip tape. It's just blue. It's a blue stained wood from the original skateboard deck, which I really quite like. And then I used a epoxy on top of it to make it really crystal clear and nice and smooth. And this was the final result. I enjoyed the skateboard. I hit it with a coat of matte Mod Podge over it too, so that's also like pretty finished and nice and clean. And I like the board. I think in the future I would want to do another board. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hoping it helped you maybe paint your skateboard or your projects in the future. I'll see you in the next one.